Hello everyone, today I'm going to be talking about the new JETKART. Previously I told you that I was going to fully strip this kart and I was going to race engineer it, which is what I've done, I think. So I'm going to take you through the new JETKART, from scratch. Here we go. So the first thing I did was obviously strip the kart completely back to its chassis, and I have cut out pretty much all of the previous modifications, brackets, engine mount tubes, absolutely everything to take this kart back to a bare chassis. Now in terms of what I've kept, it's basically 4 tubes, these extensions, which mean that the kart has a longer wheelbase. This bracket, I may get rid of it, and that is it. The rest of it is basically as it was when it was a racing kart. Now, the first thing that I needed to do was to fit a new seat, and I have got a superkart seat here. It is reclined to 40 degrees. The previous one was 63 degrees, so massively lower head height for me than previously. The next thing I've done is to reposition the pedals. So I've moved the pedals closer together. That also meant that I needed to move the master cylinder for the brakes. Staying with the front end, I have fitted a steering damper. This is from a motorcycle, and this is basically aimed to give me a bit better control at high speed. I've also lengthened the steering arms on the uprights, so here you can see I've got adjustable slower steering. Basically I can pick different points, and that is obviously for high speed stability. Obviously I've got a new steering wheel. That is so that I can fit my digital dash in this kind of square aperture at the top, and then following on from there I have the bigger fuel tanks. So twin tanks now, that gives me 24 litres of fuel capacity if I need it, versus the previous 8 litres. So yeah, those are in and ready to go. So moving back, the engine. You may notice that this is a brand new engine design. I'll do a bit more on that in another video, but the engine is new. And basically it wasn't worth me re-engineering this kart and putting all this money and time in until I had a powerful, reliable engine. And that is why it has taken me 3 years to get to this point of being able to, or I should say, of it being worthwhile to do all of this work. So the engine is now mounted in a different way. It used to be mounted on these little ears, but that meant that the whole engine could shake around a bit, wasn't very rigid. So now I'm mounting the engine off the front cover on rose joints, and I have a rose joint underneath, so I can adjust the angle of the engine, and that also means that that bottom rose joint allows for expansion of the casing when it gets hot. That's obviously mounted on this new kind of hoop, triangulated back to new stays in the chassis. Obviously I have changed the position of the engine as well. It is now 5 inches lower and 5 inches further forward in the chassis, and it is as far forward as I can get it. There's not as much airflow into it, but I will be pulling ducts from the front of the kart to feed the engine with cold air. I've got this new oil tank. This is baffled internally, and it just sneaks into that sort of empty void under the seat. Then moving back from there, I've got a new oil cooler and fan shroud to just squeeze it under the engine there. Now you might be thinking, why have I lowered and moved the engine this much forward? Well, basically it is massively advantageous in terms of centre of gravity of the kart. If I spin again, there's less chance of the kart digging in and rolling over, hopefully. And also aerodynamically, it is completely hidden and squeezed in behind the seat. The new Afterburner, which I've made here, is a foot shorter than the old one. Which means that relative to the wheelbase of the kart, I have dropped from a 70% of wheelbase overhang from the rear axle to about 38%. So hopefully, you know, much better in terms of the kart previously spinning out at 120 miles an hour. Which I put down to this sort of the centre of thrust being way too far back. I cannot make the Afterburner any shorter, so this is about as good as I can get. Moving on to the left hand side of the kart, I've got this new oil filter, which is a normal Bosch car filter. And that block is where I'll be taking my pressure and temperature measurements as well. It's new enclosure for electronics, also with a battery mount for a larger, more powerful battery. So that's about 90% of the fabrication completed. Next stage is going to be to rewire this kart and put my new ECU design in and test it all, digital dash. I'll do another video on that. If you've made it this far through this one, well done. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in a bit. Cheers.